Are you an American taxpayer? That has become the question on many people's minds ever since the UBS scandal. As you may remember, the IRS was able to apply pressure and force UBS and many other banks to reveal American taxpayers with hidden accounts. It's now obvious that the IRS has the means and the growing desire to search out American taxpayers who may have been avoiding paying U.S. taxes. As a result, the question, "Are you an American taxpayer?" is now being asked much more often and with a greater degree of urgency. It's being asked by private bankers and brokers in financial institutions around the world as their compliance departments try to avoid the devastation that would result from running afoul of U.S. authorities. It's being asked by non-U.S. estate lawyers and financial planners who realize that they would be subject to massive negligence awards for failing to deal with U.S. estate tax rules in their planning. It's being asked by individual and institutional executors who do not want to be accused of breaching U.S. tax laws when they are administering estates. It's being asked by non-Americans who are wondering if their spouse is an American taxpayer and blithely ensnaring them by electing joint file as they click their way through TurboTax. Finally, it's being asked by children and grandchildren who suspect that their elders have been avoiding asking themselves this question because they don't want to hear the answer. There are three ways you could be deemed to be an American taxpayer. First, if you're an American citizen. Even if you've never actually resided in the U.S., if you are a U.S. citizen, you are automatically a U.S. taxpayer. There's a great deal of ignorance and misinformation around the acquisition and loss of U.S. citizenship. Many people believe they are not U.S. citizens because they were born outside of the U.S. and their parents never registered them. They are wrong. Others believe that even though they were born in the U.S., they are not citizens because they never applied for an American passport. They are wrong. Some people who acknowledge that they were American at birth believe that the U.S. does not allow dual citizenship, and they stopped being Americans when they became a citizen of another country. They are also wrong. The second way that you could be deemed to be an American taxpayer is if you are a U.S. resident alien, also known as a green card holder. It's worth noting that just as you don't lose your citizenship when your passport expires, you don't lose your resident alien status just because your green card expires. Finally, the third way that you could be an American taxpayer is by spending too much time physically in the U.S. and triggering the significant presence test. It doesn't matter if it's day trips, vacations, or business trips. What is significant is that you spent even a minute in the U.S. So as you can see, there are many situations where someone who believes they have no concerns about being an American taxpayer are dead wrong. According to the IRS, they will be defined as being an American taxpayer, and they'll be liable for taxes owed for many years going back. In some cases, American taxpayers, who could now write off all of their U.S. tax liability under tax treaties, will lose this opportunity because they did not file before the IRS discovered them. The U.S. government is deeply in debt and desperate for money. Their major source of money is tax revenue. That is why the IRS is flexing its investigative muscle more and more, and they'll continue to do so for many years to come. One of the first things that the Obama administration did was to vastly expand the IRS budget and hire hundreds of new agents. They will join the hundreds that the Bush administration hired in the last few years of office. When I speak to people I suspect are U.S. taxpayers, they often say, "But I haven't filed U.S. returns for the past 20 years, so why should I worry about it now?" My response is, you've always been a U.S. taxpayer. What has changed is both the desire to hunt you down and the enhanced means to fulfill that desire by finding both you and seizing your non-U.S. assets. The IRS is well aware that there are many people residing outside of the U.S. who are required by law to file U.S. tax returns and to report foreign bank accounts. The IRS and the U.S. government's position is that each and every one of them is a tax evader, and they're leaving no stone unturned in their search for him. That's why it's not a question of if they will discover these hidden Americans. It's a question of when. And that's why, if you're an American taxpayer, you should know that the IRS is going all out to find you. They are using government-to-government pressure. They are using U.S. government to foreign financial institution pressure through the recently strengthened qualified intermediary regime. However, by far the most powerful tool in their arsenal is the whistleblower. Generally, it's not your advisor or relationship manager who becomes a turncoat. Rather, it is the back office staff person who was laid off in the recent financial crisis and who decides that selling information on you is a great way to enhance their unemployment benefits. Many American taxpayers still are in denial and think that their bank would never have this issue. However, a check of recent headlines will show that the list of financial institutions which have not had a whistleblower is pretty short. The bottom line is, you have to know where you stand, and we can help. On our website, we've created a simple questionnaire where you can easily determine if you are a U.S. taxpayer. If you, your spouse, your relative, or your client have any possible connection with the U.S., either as a possible citizen, former green card holder, or if you or they spend any significant time there, I suggest you go through this questionnaire, if only for your own peace of mind. And if you do discover that you or they may be a U.S. taxpayer, I'd strongly urge you to arrange a consultation with us under the protection of lawyer-client privilege. You can then discuss in confidence how we can help you bring your affairs in order before you are discovered by the IRS and your options close. We can also discuss how you can use a passport portfolio to legally and properly sever your future tax liability to Uncle Sam. Just click on the "Are you an American taxpayer?" button on our website to see the questionnaire.